the 23rd of November 2022. I'm your host, Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclearproctologist.org. And you can call in at 709-589-4406. The number is on the screen. Take a picture, it lasts longer. Welcome to the Nuclear Comedy Show. A little bit of sarcasm, some shouting, crying, and a whole lot of facts. Just endless, non-stop documentation. Just something you probably never experienced before if you're talking about nuclear for sure, and some other subjects. I didn't make this caricature of the IAEA because I was bored. I made it in frustration because of the constant lies that we cover from this death cult known as the International Atomic Energy Agency and Nuclear. Atoms for Humanity, the A-10 Warthog only shoots dirty bombs. McAllister, Oklahoma, a community of 1,800 people. All of them work at the weapons production facility. There's 4 of them. They make depleted uranium munitions. These are each individually classified as dirty bombs. If I take one of those munitions and put it in your drinking water supply, that's a crime. But it's not a crime for you to fund them to go to impoverished people's countries and deploy this genocide weapon against the population from the non-regulatory agencies and onwards. Memorandum of Understanding between Canada and South Korea. Scumbag South Korea. We don't approve of it in Canada, but Canada was lost to the nuclear industry in the 70s. There is no longer a Canada. There is a nuclear. Where are the fuel pools? This is reactor 3, reactor 4. If you can find the fuel pools, I'll send you 1,000 bananas and a Geiger counter. So Japan is hemorrhaging into the ocean radiation. They're growing food right alongside the 1-ton bags of radiation and shipping it worldwide. Canada, for the first decade, after 93 days, Canada removed restrictions in all 14 prefectures, while 55 countries kept a ban on it because it's poison food, right? So Canada was severely poisoned. The effects, there's 1,800 illnesses. And of course, cancer has exploded across Canada. This is due to the nuclear industry sabotaging the country, so you're too weak to fight back for the rest of your sick lives. I've done research expeditions after Fukushima. This is the British Columbia coastline. Just show you a couple of these pictures. I'll put it on the big screen. I don't think the world is awake yet. The pictures to your left are now exterminated because of radioactive fallout from Japan. Those species are permanently gone. What's more important, those species are small modular reactors. Because you need to ask yourself that question, and your friends and your loved ones. Take screen captures, print it out, and have a conversation. What's more important, the species to the left or nuclear power? Because you can't have both. And you can't have that. That's gone. The damage has already been done. This is catastrophic damage. And they're trying to blame it on carbon. And they're very successful. Well, we got a lot of news to cover. Little buggers have been up to it again. And we cover a 24-hour news cycle to try to keep those pictures in the conversation. So I have to go out and debase myself by reading nuclear lies all day so we can do a show at night. It used to be Nuclear the Scumbag Show, which is definitely more appropriate. And we changed it to the Nuclear Comedy Show to remind me not to give myself a heart attack all the time. It was working. Now my heart just goes boom, 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 boom all the time instead of boom. That's a win. Up to 40 nuke tarts are coming to New Brunswick. 40 degenerates got jobs waiting for them in New Brunswick. That's pretty cool. Nuclear industry got to get paid too, you know. I'm not saying it's cool. That's Molex, right? They're going to use mixed oxide fuel, which is illegal in Canada. They're currently changing the law. A company from Britain is changing the law so that we can make mixed oxide fuel so they can get a paycheck and poison everybody in Canada. That's not comedy. What the frig is? The company will receive as much as $550,000 in payroll rebates. The company, the genocide machine, you mean? The mass murder machine. China's moon base to be powered by new nuke tart systems. 30 nuclears going to the moon. Now, the problem with man-made nuclear, it's man-made. It doesn't exist in the solar system. Or we call it man-made because the sun doesn't create these elements, right? And that's why everything on the planet with replicating cells can't survive after being exposed to the atomic plague, which is radioactive fallout. Can be used to make oxygen and operate instruments. Really going to have instruments on the moon? You sure that's not illegal? And other things like extract water. That's the last water I want to be drinking. MHI delivers the first pump of 36 for Hinkley Point. The reactors need 1 million gallons a minute, 4,500 tons of water a minute. Each glass of water is 16 million glasses a minute. Each glass got 1 billion creatures. Eggs and larvae and everything else, and 75 to 100 million of them are the phytoplankton. The base is the food chain, the base is the oxygen chain, the base is the carbon sequestering chain. See, I couldn't have done that a couple of days ago without Robitussin. Robitussin is not kicking back, trust me. I'm just pushing to see what the throat can handle. And I've been yelling at the microphone for 10 years. It's like, the microphone didn't do nothing to me. Stop yelling at it, Dana. And I'm feeling just so much better now, blaming the microphone for everything. Like if I stub my toe, I come in and yell at the microphone. That's a fact. They're not getting off that easy. It's voodoo. Microphones can do voodoo. You know that, right? 34 units now. Hinkley Point is surrounded by farms as far as you can see, like every other nuclear power plant, which is a coincidence. That's not on purpose, not trying to poison you in your supermarkets. Okay, well, actually, they are. But it's quite a coincidence. Every nuclear plant and dump and everything else is surrounded by farms, active, the rich farms are shipping to the markets all the time. A nuclear assault calls it quits after 37 years. Let's hope I got the courage to do it after 37 years. Get a nuke patch so I don't... It'll never work. 37 years of head banging. They can't get their head to stop anymore. They've been shaking it for 37 years. They're like, honey, what are you doing? What do you mean, what am I doing? This is normal. I've been doing it for 37 years. They put up their own tombstone. By the looks of them, they're not that far away from the tombstones themselves. Russia TV host calls for nuke tart strike despite dissent from the pundits, because that's how it works, right? Even if Fox News was to do something like this, they would have plants that are saying, well, maybe we shouldn't do it. And you're like, why? Well, I don't know, but maybe we shouldn't do it. This is pretty funny stuff, actually. The TV host, Valdemar, not related to Putin, apparently, called for the use of nuclear weapons against Ukraine because Ukraine hasn't gotten, and all they got is NATO supplying them with every technology in 40 different or 30 different militaries worldwide. With the United Nations there to back them up, of course, which is 195 militaries, which is George Bush calls the New World Order, and Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex. That's probably just a coincidence. They've clearly given up on the idea of defeating Ukraine military. This could be propaganda. Who knows anymore, right? So they need to use a nuclear weapon, Dana. They can't defeat NATO. I'm sorry, I mean Ukraine/NATO. NATO's given Ukraine just the weapons that... There's 60 other conflicts ongoing, but Ukraine is more important than every human. That's why we have inflation worldwide. Not because of the 60 other conflicts. There's no embargoes against those misery machines. World Nuclear News, this is not going to be good. If it's from the World Nuclear News, they're going to jump on your back and stab you the minute they see you. Defects found in 2 key components of the Inter-Tomahawk, the fusion Darling, is 27 miles long. They're going to have to tear it all apart. So they need a couple of $1 trillion, I guess. Defects were discovered in the thermal shields, and without the thermal shields, everything goes boom. They got so much money in that, they use the same amount of energy as like New York City whenever they turn it on. Not kidding you. They probably got their own coal, gas, and oil plants dedicated to it, like a nuclear power plants too. We got a poll tonight. It doesn't matter anymore. Should disease factories, which are also known as dirty, despicable, disgusting nuclear power plants, be replaced with clean geothermal energy? That makes sense. Why would you do that? That's crazy. We got a resounding 100% yes, folks. I got a resounding 100% yes. They zoom in on those. You see the crack? You see it? You can't smoke it. There's not that kind of crack. Nukies. A total of approximately 23 kilometers, not 27, are welded to the surface of the thermal shield, so they all got to be inspected. The risk is too high and the consequences of a leaking thermal shield panel during operations are too dire. Imagine if you took all this 5,000 academics and tried to get them to solve geothermal. How we can, not solve it, but how do we drill down easier? The only issue with geothermal is drilling. And because it gets really hard where the heat is too, because it'll heat the rocks continuously for 1 million years, say, right? And so they're like samurai metal swords where they're, I don't know. So why not switch it to geothermal? You don't have to bring train loads of coal and oil and gas and nuke fuel all the time. Geothermal, you can just plug and play every plant on the planet. Just keep it working, build your geothermal, and then switch over to geothermal when you got everything set up, and turn off the commodity glutton like gas, oil, and coal, which are way better than nuclear. They're infinitely better than nuclear. Nuclear is the last thing you want Just imagine if we discover a planet with 8 billion people on it, and you know what, the nuclear industry is going to go there and put a nuclear power plant, right? That's the end of that future for that planet. That's my biggest fear. Occupational, besides losing this planet, occupational exposure at nuclear power plant. Oh, I'm not finished that one. I'll just flash you through what I got there so far. It's 144 pages. I haven't read it all. I haven't read just maybe the first few pages or something, right? But basically, it's a PDF file. I download it. And so average dose by country over 3 years. Person sieverts per reactor. This is one naughty industry, man. It's one lunatic industry. You're not getting sieverts from you're not getting like microsieverts or millisieverts or anything else. You're getting atoms, physical atoms that sequester in your muscles, your organs, and your bones. Your body attacks it for the rest of your life. So when they're talking about the people in the countries are getting 1.01 microsievert, are they saying sievert there? I can't remember. I got to read the whole thing because this wasn't even supposed to be here tonight. But you can see Armenia, Belgium, Brazil. There's a whole list of these countries and the doses the population is getting. And of course, they're going to play it down and everything else. And so they claim now the doses are falling at plants worldwide. It doesn't work that way. It's worse because everything's bombarded on site with neutrons, so everything is emitting energy. That's why 90% of a nuclear site is supposed to go to a holding repository site once you so-called decommission it. But the fuel pools at these sites are always hemorrhaging radiation into the environment. It's 144 pages. I was just trying to... I got to page 21 or 22, 23 or something, right? And I got to read the whole thing before I can... It looks complicated anyway. Where they're not really explaining things, so you kind of got to do your own research. Myanmar and Russia agreed to establish a nuclear technology hub in Yangon, Myanmar, which is a dictatorship, right? Incredibly cruel, too. Where if somebody in a community shoots at a soldier, they'll burn the whole village down. And Russia's going to give them a nuclear power plant, apparently. They already gave them attack helicopters. Nuclear outage raises risks to Finland power supply. This is the Occupational of Finland, the fabled monster. This was supposed to be up and running in 2012, 10 years ago. It's only supposed to be 3 billion euros. It's over 12 billion, I think. The latest delay to the Finland's Okiloki 3, my apologies if I butcher the language of Finland because I don't speak it. Reactor further increases uncertainty around the country's power supply to winter. Really? You think you're actually going to get it to run this winter? After cracks were found in the key components. That can't be good, can it? It's a setback. Really? You haven't had a few of them, have you, with that particular reactor? It's a decade late, and it's around 4 times over budget. Like, you hear me? 4 times. Oh, yeah, we can build a reactor for 3 billion. How much? 3 billion. Did you say 12 billion? No, I said 3 billion. It absolutely positively won't cost you 12. Maybe. That's what they do, right? Oh, no, well, you get your reactor for 3 billion. Okay, let's do it. Well, that was just to clear the land. We need another 3 billion to get the engineers to come in, another 3 billion to get equipment, and then another $3 billion to bribe the local government, and maybe another $3 billion to get workers. KHNP cooperates with Canada's Candu Energy to dismantle defunct nuclear power plants. After 80 years, they still don't know what they're doing. And South Korea is embarrassing for the Asian countries, right? They're like that hockey player on every team that everybody has to tie their skates up and put their shoulder pads on for them and wipe their nose all the time because they can't really do much on their own. South Korea is a failed state. Now, the people of South Korea are wonderful people, but the government is just... The IQ is typically of 6-year-olds. Dana, that's being pretty generous. Yeah, but you know what? They're small too, like 6-year-olds on top of that. South Korea state-run operator, nuclear power plant operator... Twice in one less than half a sentence. Cooperated with Candu Energy, which is a revolting part of the Canadian nuclear industry. Signed a memorandum of understanding to keep each other's sixes safe from the population, to secure technologies for dismantling defunct, stupid, decrepit, radioactive nuclear power plants, in other words. Accumulated technology will be used for the early dismantlement of South Korea's first pressurized heavy water reactor, which went in operation in 1982. So Canada got to go down and rescue them. Canada can't even get rid of their own nuclear waste. 18 years they've been looking for a community they can stick it into rather than take it somewhere where there's no fresh water and bury it. That way, because they know the communities won't take it, and they'll fight over 3 or 4 years, and we're going to go try again somewhere else. Right now, they're trying to put it alongside of 70,000 ponds, because that makes sense. We're actually right in the middle of it. The Canadian flag and the South Korean flag is probably the stupidest thing I've seen this week. And I've seen stupid this week, believe you me. I've seen lots of it. Korea hydro nuclear power. They can't even decommission the reactor, but they're allowed to run one. Just like TEPCO, right? Operator 24 nuke plants, disease factories in South Korea. Become the world's first heavy water reactor to be dismantled immediately. Because normally they let them sit for about 60 years, right? Let them cool down. And then there's no one there to check on them from the old days, and they can do whatever they want, right? Waits for decades, and normally they wait for decades until the plant after the plant stops operating, not until. And radioactivity falls below a certain level after they poison all your communities for 60 years extra after it shuts down. Under a memorandum of understanding with Candu Energy. Yeah, and they actually got big banners. The memorandum of signing ceremony. It's a ceremony. They got money for everything, right? Well, let's get the press in and need a banner and little flags, not the big ones, little ones. You might have to fly to South America to get them made, but that's okay. We need flowers. Find 2 guys and put them in $5,000 suits. Give them a couple of pieces of paper and get the picture taken. Hurry up, chop, chop, double time, let's go. It's so pathetic, I can't read it. I just can't do it to you. I feel bad doing that much to you. Nuclear ships regulations to enter into force in the United Kingdom. They just changed all the rules. With no debate. Let's send a whole bunch of terrorist machines out on the ocean, hope nothing sinks on the North Atlantic. These are maniacs, eh? Putting ships on the ocean with nuclear reactors on it for cargo. And they say they can save about half the money they would normally spend on fuel by doing it. That justifies it, I'm sure. Let's take nuclear reactors and put them all over the ocean. And so when they're coming in the communities, you know they're going to be radiating everything. They're going to radiate everything. It's going to pass legislation in December, closing a loophole which doesn't allow this kind of propulsion as the potential pathway for slashing emissions. So nuclear is not slashing emissions. And putting it on the ocean could be catastrophic for, one of the biggest bodies of water on the bloody planet. It's complete disregard of humanity. The nuclear industry is up to no good constantly. It's never trying to do something good. It's always up to no good. Set to enter into force on December the 8th. The nuclear code for stupid ships is found in Chapter 8 of the Annex to the International Convention on the Safety of Life at Sea. This is the same company dumped nuclear fuel rods into the ocean for 30 years. Just driving around, never stopping, just continuously throwing nuclear waste overboard, ship after ship, day after day for 30 years. That's why they're not struggling to find a nuclear waste site, because they spent 30 years throwing it in the ocean, destroying it. So then we already got it destroyed, might as well have nuclear ships. Nothing to lose anymore. They got Windscale in the United Kingdom since the 50s. Mixed oxide fuel reactors been melting down with 8 million liters a day hemorrhaging into the Atlantic Ocean. Now they want to put big, dirty bombs out there on the ocean. And they're going to use the old salt, reprocess it to mix oxide fuel and use it again for ships. Yeah, you could do it, but that's a whole different level of evil to do something like this. You don't own the ocean. It's not your personal dump, you piece of shit, nuclear tart industry. What a scumbag industry. Everybody in the industry just seems to be degenerate, child-molesting monsters. UK company showcased for the first time a nuclear electric propulsion system. Well, whoopee fucking do. Yay. You gobblish, disgusting parasites. Independent from volatile fuel prices. Sure, you're only burning bunker fuel, which is supposed to be held on site for 1 million years. Well, it doesn't take that long, but it's supposed to be on a waste site for a couple of 100 years till it breaks down into something harmless. Instead, they burn it in container ships. They're the biggest polluters on the planet. Putting nuclear in it, like, it should be just big wind sail machines instead of, that's what they used to do 400 years ago, and these things were fast. You know what I'm saying, right? You can do the same amount of savings on a conventional ship. In fact, much more if you put your mind to it, by just putting big sails on these things. Think of all the jobs you'll create. All by producing zero emission. Again, right, the industry has gone savage claiming, particularly in the last year, but the last couple of months, it was since 2015, but particularly the last couple of months, zero emission, net zero, carbon free is an actual assault, right? Each day in the media, you're being assaulted. The obstacle avoided implementation of nuclear technologies, commercial shipping has been public acceptance due to safety concerns. Well, how many actions does it take to pollute your planet? Just one. And then you're going to put these in people's communities and not tell them there's a nuclear reactor in their community. Europe must fully embrace nuclear energy instead of geothermal. You can replace all plants by just using geothermal. These are disease factors. Nuclear power plants are disease factors. They're always hemorrhaging radiation. The fuel pools, once you take fuel out of containment and put it in the pools, it's now still splitting the atoms, and there's no containment. They're released directly into the environment. Should disease factories, also known as dirty disease nuclear power plants, be replaced with clean geothermal energy? Yeah, of course it should be. With Russia's stranglehold on the region's energy, so we're seeing that narrative completely switched in the last 2 months to, instead of embargoes causing inflations, Russia won't give anybody oil. And that's why you got the inflation. The reason you got inflation is because United Nations countries were forced to put an embargo against the only country they can get their commodities from. Canada's got oil. We capped oil off the east coast of Canada for 45 years. Drill and cap, drill and cap, drill and cap for 45 years. Got enough oil here to feed the planet for an absurd amount of time. It's a 150-mile continental shelf, right? It was absurdly productive reproduction coastline for the species, for the migratory species included. And so it created this massive amount of oil. And isn't that disgusting? A despicable graphics nuclear power plant. It's actually uglier than a nuclear power plant. Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine stripped away many naive assumptions. There's 60 wars going on at the same time, but the only one that's important is Ukraine, right? Give me a break. The history behind Germany's nuclear phaser, they said, look at this lie here. Following the Fukushima nuclear disaster, Germany's then Chancellor Angela Merkel infamously pledged to close the country's 3 nuclear power plants. Actually, they closed these plants. It wasn't 3. It was 17 or 18. They closed 6 in 2011. I lost track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 in 2011, right away the first year. And the whole world went savage. The nuclear industry for the last 11 years have attacked Germany for doing that. You can't make it on your own. And they did, though. Closed 3 nuclear power plants, but there was a lot more in that. This is what I mean. The media just tells lies of convenience. Nuclear energy holds the key to Europe achieving energy security. It's time for a continent-wide nuclear renaissance, I guess, in Germany. But a better option is just to drill down into the earth and tap into geothermal. I could work on any gas, oil, coal, nuclear plant on the planet, drill down, tap into geothermal, set everything up, and then when everything is working, switch off the gas, oil, coal, or nuclear. And that's the end of it for you, right? And in the future, only build geothermal. The Armatum, which is Armenian, this nuclear power plant needs a new unit. I got a suit and tie on, so this is getting done. The director of the Armenian Scientific Research Institute, mass murder, because he obviously knows the difference, for nuclear disease factories, and chairman of the board of directors of the Armenian disease factories. That's not quite a long title he got there, isn't it? Yeah, but he's got a suit, Dana. You got to give him a long title. Ukraine avoids a disastrous Russia shells nuclear plant. How many times have they shelled that nuclear plant in, say, the last 3 months? Between Ukraine and Russia, it's over 20. They lost power 6 times or something. Now another plant has lost power. And Rafael Grossi is up on Twitter, which should be illegal. IAEA shouldn't be allowed on Twitter, right? Obviously. They don't have any redeeming qualities, so they shouldn't be allowed. Is Poland secretly harboring nuclear weapons? Yeah, they're part of NATO, so most likely. They're right on the border with Ukraine, so probably. Poland to move missile launchers to the border. Now, they can't build their own plants. Surely they can't build a missile launcher. The secret cities of the Soviet Union. There was over 100 secret cities. Soviet Union was an incredible. They were more advanced than America, for instance, in China. In everything, jet engines, spacecrafts, technology, and everything else. They still have a lot of these cities. These are radioactive cities. And there's one of them, if you sit by the pond for an hour, you'll die from radiation exposure, which means you're not supposed to be in that part of the country, see? And people still live in that Cheroblinka, is it? I can't remember. They give a lot of their cities numbers. They built an entire secret city, each with its own secret purpose, usually nuclear disease factory researchers, biological weapons, and spacecraft. Which is same as America done, right? The Manhattan Project, they had secret cities all over America. Particularly with the national laboratories, they all had secret cities. They went out and infiltrated the universities. And it's a long read, but if you look into it, it's fascinating. If you read that article, you'll find, I'm not going to go through everything, it's just, you can't keep up with it as it is. But the people in those cities have good health care, guaranteed jobs, salary bonuses, private housing, and technology. There's about 40 of these cities allegedly in Russia today, with about 1.5 million useful murderers living in it. And they have all these numbered cities, right? And you weren't allowed to whisper, you weren't allowed to do anything like that. So geothermal is where you drill down into the earth. Not very far, but they're having problems because they can't get funding to do it. And they don't have the technology. They have the technology to drill so far, but once you get close to the geothermal itself, apparently it's really hard on the equipment, right? It's not like drilling for oil or gas or something like that, where you're looking for big open spaces. They're trying to drill down and hit the temperature where everything is solid, basically. And so the new technology is going to use like a laser type equipment to vaporize the rocks until they get down deep enough to tap in to 1,000-degree temperatures, and then they're good for millions of years. I know it sounds stupid, but it might work. They got plants around the world that work. Greenland basically is mostly geothermal. Nuclear industry promises action in the wake of Constipated Party 27. Also known as COPS 27, also known as the Death Cult reunion each year. 27 years of constipation. And so on his return from Constipated Party 27, International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA Director General, King of the World, Man of the Year, General Raphael Mariano Grossi, has told the Agency Board of Governors, agency, which is United Nations, at a time of great uncertainty about whether the world can keep global warming to a limit that averts the worst consequences of climate change. And the IAEA cooperatively is offering solutions and a way to progress. Why did they wait 27 years? Because they've been doing this for 27 years about global warming. Finally, 27 years later, they got their own pavilion, and now they're the saviors. Don't believe them. These are perpetual disease factories and lawyers on top of that. And this is a new one from the last couple of weeks that he noted nuclear energy is 25% of the global low-carbon power already. This is we never heard that anywhere in the last decade, say, right? We never heard that statement before. Only the last 2 weeks. And some of them are saying 50% of the world's low-carbon energy. They'll just lie. They're really good at it. That's what they went to university to be professional lawyers. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's exactly what they done, right? They went to universities to be professional lawyers. Once a lawyer, always a lawyer. You're a lawyer too. I'm a lawyer, he's a lawyer, you're a lawyer tree. He's a lawyer for a lawyer. And I don't know what I was going to say. Sorry. It's all good. Sue me. Hang on. Technical difficulties. There we go. That probably worked better. For me, anyway. Atoms for Net Zero. Man. And they had people at this new pavilion at the Constipated Parties 27, the big signs, Atoms for Net Zero. Different countries going there and signing memorandums of understanding to take a small modular reactor that doesn't even exist in order to promote it, right? And then he went down to the new kids boot that they chipped in and bought for the kids, which for $500,000, these pavilion, what they call pavilion, is these little fear boots, right? Where they put some chairs and tables and they try to sell their voodoo. And get their picture taken with all the children. The first time the kids ever had a pavilion, right? Which makes sense because the IAEA, they got the personality and the IQ of children, right? They didn't want to be alone. Used fuel can be reused and recycled, except that it's an evil thing to do. He just said last week it's very, very difficult. I can't imagine anybody do it. Now he's saying used fuel can be reused and recycled. A bloody miracle in less than a week. Small modular reactors and advanced modular reactors, both that don't exist. There's only one design on paper that's got so-called approval, but they can't build it because you need another 1,000 pieces of paper to complete the application. And so you won't look at geothermal. You won't look at any other technologies. So we need to place nuclear energy at the center of our economic relaunch strategy, relaunch nuclear renaissance. This is the last kick at the can they're going to get at this, by the way, right? The renewable industry has curb stomped them for quite a few years in a row. Last year was 291 gigawatts of renewables. That's equal to 333 nuclear power plants, large ones, where the renewables came online in just 12 months, versus 0.4, less than half a gigawatt of nuclear that came online. And so they pulled out all stops. And the population just, because this is how they make an enormous amount of money each year. It's not a big deal for them. They own the media. They captured the regulatory agencies and the universities and the medias in increments over decades. And I mean, they captured them. Like you might think you live in a small town and you got a little media there that's been there for decades, and you think that's not captured. You can guess again. They bought it all up, and particularly in the last 10 years. The rest, whatever was floating around, got snatched, and they're all public relation firms. They're no longer medias. They're now, if you go there and get a business card from anybody there, it says public relation. The energy transition is not possible without maintaining and expanding the role of dirty disease factories, also known as nuclear power. This is an absolute 100% deceitful statement from Rafael Grossi from the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is United Nations, and United Nations is 195 militaries. It formerly was the League of Nations. So when they've changed their name to United Nations, they took America and a few other countries and went to North Korea and wrecked it, flattened it, and kept them under an embargo since the 50s. Over 70 years later, 75 years later, North Korea still hasn't been able to go on to Disneyland or anywhere else worldwide. A total land, sea, and air. And this is a collective punishment. This is a war crime to punish the population to get at a military. That's collective punishment. That's illegal under their own charter. But this is United Nations. They killed millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, millions of orphans. They burnt down every village in North Korea. And they called it a police action because North Korea was, they wanted North Korea to stop the use of force against South Korea, so they destroyed, attacked all the women and children in the entire country to make it stop. And then he just said, frig it, we're just going to put land, sea, air embargoes against them forever. Remember, Japan occupied them for 50 years. As soon as they got out of the way, United Nations went there and burnt down everything that was left. It's 120-something years of being kept in a box. At what point is North Korea going to be allowed to participate with the rest of humanity, I wonder? Or will they? America got 10,000 nuclear weapons. North Korea got 7. How many people did North Korea attack in the last 75 years? None. How many did America attack? They knocked down every building in Afghanistan with 28 million people, using depleted uranium in all the farmers' fields and the drinking water and everything else. 5.5 million rounds a month for 9 years. 29,000 rapes a year. Then they went over to Iraq, done the same thing. Then they went to Syria, done the same thing. Russia was there before for 10 years. Doing the same thing. That's not empire building, that's just evilness. It's just evilness. You can't even have a future now because of Japan's Fukushima. Japan's shipping food from the nuclear wasteland worldwide non-stop. In the first year, Japan had an extra 68,000 or something. 865,000 cancers, extra cancers. Cancer is just one of 1,800 illnesses will show up from radiation. So Rafael Grossi's like, nuclear is more important than humanity and the species. Belarus' approach to managing spent nuclear fuel explained. They're going to go to the mixed oxide fuel route. So they're the enemies of humanity, just like Moltex is in Canada, right? Safety first must be a priority for the Fukushima water, China deadly editorial. So they're claiming, this is really interesting, they're claiming the ocean is not Japan's dump. And talking about tritium, all other radionuclides will be removed. The Pacific Ocean does not belong to Japan. Well, you might want to reconsider that. Here's what Japan done to the ocean. We've done the research expeditions. These are the most important pictures you'll ever see. So this is Vancouver, British Columbia. Up there is Alaska. There's 27,000 islands. It's a treacherous, hideous, dangerous coastline. Out employed the waters, meandered through the 27,000 islands for 4 to 5 months each year, looking for the species to your left. And they are exterminated from radioactive fallout. That's permanent. So does that matter? Is nuclear actually more important than all the species on the planet? Because that's what I asked the question. And why ain't we having a conversation? Why don't people go up and prove me wrong? Why doesn't the academic community say, well, Dana, you're wrong. Dana, we're going to go up and launch an expedition and show the whole world that you're a lawyer, Dana. It actually looks like that, Dana. It doesn't look like that. You know why they're not doing that? Because I done it for 6 years and I never came back. And if that doesn't matter to you, there's something wrong with you. You are missing. You are dysfunctional. If those species don't, even though you might never have seen it with your own 2 eyes, if you think that that's acceptable for the industry, a meltdown to have the capacity to exterminate and cause an extinction level event is somehow useful, you are sadly mistaken, because there's 1,000 fuel pools hemorrhaging radiation into your ear. Let me explain that to you. Maybe I can explain that to you. Maybe, just maybe. And like, we can change the world for the better, and we can do it with geothermal and back it up with tidal energy and wind and solar and storage. And there's tons of great storage solutions. And none of them are batteries. When they say, batteries for storage to power your city, they're trying to scuttle your future. They're trying to wreck your future. This model really tells the story. This is France's model based on venting. Of course, there was no venting. As soon as the tsunami swept through the site, there was nothing left. That's a 16-day model of radioactive fallout. So when the tide goes down, the species were exposed to it twice a day, because the tide goes down twice a day. You had this sustained plume covering the entire planet. La 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 la. Let me give you an example of what I was talking about. So 800 or 680 kilometers of the coastline was torn apart. There was no electricity to vent. The red numbers to your right are people that are missing. The yellow numbers are dead. The yellow numbers are the people that were missing in each of these areas. That's 600 kilometers plus of the coastline. Let me just find a couple pictures of the tsunami hitting the nuclear plant, because apparently people think that none of that matters. So up close, what does that look like? Hang on, I'm almost there. Or maybe I'm not, I don't know. The world is very confusing. That don't matter. Let me check for tsunami. And you get the whole book thrown at me. Tsunami. Oh, I got it. I'm an idiot. apologies. Hang on. I forgot to bring up the actual window to type in. So if I just type on my keyboard, everything goes eh. That was funny, actually. Let me try this again. I was just trying to go right through the show tonight without no smurf-ups. Here we go. There's some doozies. I can't show you. That's too terrible. Oh, I can't show you that. That's too terrible. That's terrible. You're talking 600. What did I do that time? Oh. Let me get one more picture. Maybe you don't understand it. Wait now. Let me get the pitch. Tsunami hitting the nuke plant. Type that in, Dana. Because I got a folder there just with tsunami hits Fukushima plant. I got videos, but I wanted to find the tsunami. Let me go back. Get rid of one of these words. One more try. Oh, to be a tsunami hitting Fukushima nuclear power plant. Oh, well. Well. Who's laughing now? Who's laughing now? That's the water when it's running out. I don't think these pictures are in order. I have to remember to get them in order. So the tsunami is coming in at 700 kilometers an hour. The first one comes in and hits the landmass, slows down. The next one, there's water rising on top of it, right? The next one rising on top of that. Where's all the Danas coming from? Stop doing that. That's the water going out, the water coming back in. Let me see what we got here. Remember these people, well, you can see the water right here, right? What the hell, man? So this is the water running to the tsunami. I didn't do anything that time. I got a ghost in my computer, folks. So after the tsunami runs through the plant at 600, 700 kilometers an hour, you really think the nuclear academics or the nuclear workers were there venting? Anybody? Anybody think they were venting? So I think it's a play on words. They were venting. These buildings were venting. They weren't venting nothing. This was a total fabrication from the nuclear industry, compliments of the nuclear lobbying groups, I'm sure. It's a perpetual lying machine, basically. And because we reformatted all of the equipment a few months ago, it wiped out half of my archive that was cherry-picked for this type of program, right? I got to rebuild it. In order to rebuild it, you're looking at about 2 weeks of just sitting there 6, 7, 8 hours a day, digging up the documentation and keeping it in one of my chapters, so I always got access to it, right? I can put around 9,000 pieces of information in each chapter, which is basically screen captures and pictures. Oh yeah, we already covered that, didn't we? Up to 40 nuke tart jobs coming to New Brunswick for Moltex, which is going to be a small modular reactors that don't even exist. What's going on here? We already covered that. Oh, I gotta go wait. Oh, I'm supposed to be at 300. Hang on. Silly me. I'll get there. We already covered the ships. We covered the funny looking reactors. Covered that. We covered the suit. We covered Russia, Ukraine. Covered degenerate Raphael Grossi over and over and over. The secret cities of the Soviet Union. Maybe it was 400, Dana. Did we cover that? Belarus, yeah. I think that was the last one. No, then it was China Daily. This one here, that's where we left off. Safety first must be a priority. Deteriorating plant threatens mass extinction around the world. This is a model, by the way, from NOAA. Does that mean anything to anybody? Oh. Hang on. This is where they think they created a virus that attacks cancer. And I don't understand how this is working. But apparently they got a virus called Vaccinia. Vaccinia. Also makes the cancer cells more recognizable to the immune system, making it easier to target the invading cancer cells. They're convinced, but will directly attack the cancer and stimulate our immune systems. I didn't do that. So I must have a button on my keyboard that's sticking. It gotta be that one there. I'll take it tomorrow and stick the air hose and try to blow all the old dust out of it. I don't eat around that keyboard, right? To sign up for... no. But anyway, they think they have cracked the virus that makes the cancer more vulnerable to your immune system instead of putting radiation in you and killing you. It's probably a good thing, really. Unless you're into that kind of stuff, I don't know. The rise and fall of nuclear energy, and they don't tell you jack shit in this story. The global energy crisis brought about by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There were 60 conflicts going on, and United Nations says, well, that we want Ukraine, so we want all the countries that are part of United Nations and NATO to put embargoes against Russia. Yeah, it's going to cause inflation, destroy your own country, but do it for United Nations. So they did. And now everybody worldwide can barely afford to do anything, let alone heat their houses and everything else. And now the media is universally claiming Russia has cut off the world instead of the other way around, which is what actually happened. That should horrify you all on its own. Has increased interest in alternate energy sources, including disease factories, which is also known as nuclear power plants. Should disease factories that are also known as dirty nuclear power plants, be replaced with clean, green, too cheap to meter geothermal energy? Yeah, maybe you should, Dana. And so we kind of heard different variations of these paragraphs over the last few weeks, particularly when you're looking at Constipated Party 27's narrative. This is propaganda, which is social engineering, they call it now, right? Social engineering. Very, very dangerous. And it's not illegal to lie to you. Have all the media and universities coordinate propaganda and drill it into everybody's head so that very few people everybody's so sick of the lies, very few people. The Space Garden can feed astronauts on the moon. So they just sent their Artemis, whatever frig that NASA money pit is going to be called, one up to do some reconnaissance with dummies in the seats. Because that's NASA. There's so many dummies there. A Space Garden can feed astronauts on the moon. Yeah? And any other planet in the solar system, probably, if you can get it to work. It doesn't got microbacteria as you need in the soil or anything like that. But when you see stories like that, you're just looking for the propaganda, and boom, there it is, NASA. NASA is disgusting, eh? NASA is just overboard disgusting. Dimming the sun to cool the planet. Now, my other site, I had around 20 videos on geoengineering. And out in British Columbia, after Fukushima, the first year or second year, we went 178 days on the Sunshine Coast without seeing the sunshine. Geoengineering all day, every day, by the military. And so this story claims it's not happening, but it might happen. But it's actually, as everybody who pays attention to chemtrailing knows that they just, and people don't even understand this technology. So they chemtrailed Vietnam for 9 years with Agent Orange. You really think they got rid of the technology? There's 138 ski resorts in the United States that have a permit to go up and chemtrail the skies over their area to make it snow on their resorts. 138. During the Olympics in China, they broke up a storm coming in by sending up planes and shearing the clouds. The Royal Air Force in the 1940s made it rain so much to kill 30 people in northern Scotland. And then in Vietnam, the chemtrailing, they were able to make the rain during the monsoons last an extra 6 weeks, washing away communities that were harboring the Viet Cong. So they chemtrailed that country for 9 years straight. They killed all the insects. Today, there's 3 million children born with incredible debilitating deformities from the Agent Orange poison. And a lot of that ran off, of course, into the ocean. The reason the war ended in Vietnam is quite interesting. The soldiers killed around 10,000 commanding officers, throwing hand grenades into their lunch tents and sleeping quarters and everything else. They were being chemtrailed too on the ground. They knew it, right? So when the next war, when he went, which wasn't really a war, it was a slaughter, where he used depleted uranium munitions in Saudi Arabia or Kuwait. When Saddam invaded Kuwait and was heading out of there, it was called the Highway of Death. They bulldozed everything after because it was so hot from depleted uranium munitions, right? But they didn't give the soldiers munitions until the day they were ready to engage with, I can't even remember Saddam's elite terrorist group. Not that it matters. But back to the chemtrailing. They've been chemtrailing North America for 20-something years straight hardcore, all day, every day. And that story identifies, like if you're looking for documentation, that particular story identifies many of the think tanks and institutions that are promoting geoengineering, right? And the United Nations is promoting it. If we miss the target, they said, which of course we're going to miss, then we're going to have to geoengineer the planet. Now, if you create clouds, you're going to trap the heat in, which is what's happening. But there's a lot there. I'm not going to take you through it. But there's a lot I got just for the documentation. And they're pretending it's not happening when it's absolutely, positively, unequivocally, unassailably happening. Europe's major drought, Africa's major droughts, and this is all stuff we're aware of, but I can't cover everything. But if you're looking for the documentation, that article, man, is really incredibly full of it. And guess who wrote it? Is Bill McKibbins. He's the founder of 350.org, folks, which has hundreds and hundreds of chapters worldwide, little demons. They created all kinds of organizations like this, but this is one of the few that took off, right? They're absolutely agenda-driven by think tanks from the military-industrial complex on top of that. But they actually have the New Yorker let this disgusting parasite, he's a despicable parasite to humanity and the 8 million species. He's a parasite. To let him write an article like that where he blows the whistles in all the geoengineering organizations worldwide and the people that are funding and everything is brilliant, isn't it? He's there to promote it, but he's like a narc on the industry where he gives you all this information. But he's pro-geoengineering, right? It's happening, and they're pretending it's not happening. Russian born with half a body, one arm after his mother was exposed to Chernobyl radiation. A huge amount of Chernobyl radiation. I'll show you some more. There's orphanages after orphanages of the children abandoned because of Chernobyl. And it's debilitating, disfiguring stuff, right? But the orphanages are cruel. They're actually cruel. Not all of them, but the majority of them are very cruel. The children are always begging for a radio or a TV set because they're so bored and they don't know what the word love is or hug is or I got a lot of pictures. I'm not going to show you the worst, what I consider the worst pictures, but let me show you some of it. These are abandoned children because of disfigurement and health issues because of radiation. Heart issues is massive down there. As little as 11 becquerels a kilogram will wreck the children. So they just sit there. They don't have no TV, no radio, nothing to help them pass the day. These are children getting ready for brain surgery from tumors in Belarus. Lying on dirty mattresses, eating out of a steel bowl. And incredibly disfigurements of children. We're talking orphanage after orphanage after orphanage after orphanage in Belarus and Ukraine of children that have been abandoned because of Chernobyl. Not gas, not oil, not coal, but Chernobyl. This is pathetic. Chalk River, Ontario company heading to the moon. No, they're not. Some of their equipment is, but they're not heading to the moon. CTV News. What have I got done now? I'll do that again. CTV News. Multi-skilled journalist. Multi-skilled journalist. Imagine how inferior complex they actually have. They write something like that there. Multi-skilled journalist. The frig does that even mean? You can write with both hands? I don't know. A relatively unknown company, which is Bubble Technology Industries, they make the devices to check for radiation at the Super Bowls and stuff like that, or wherever scumbag prime ministers and presidents are hanging out. And they got $40 million or $43 million from the Canadian Space Agency for radiation technology. They didn't speak out when China or Japan started shipping food to Canada, did they? They didn't denounce that a single time. Canada is still being... Canada is now permanently polluted from just food, not from the actual... and fallout, of course, but just from the food from Japan, because they couldn't ship it anywhere else. Canada was the only country who would take their food. So within 93 days, Canada was under siege and everybody was being poisoned with bioaccumulation. Thanks to the nuclear industry, and scumbags like Chalk River, where the first nuclear meltdown in history was apparently at Chalk River, Canada, which is right alongside, runs into the biggest freshwater aquifer on the planet. They buried it on site eventually with cement recently, 70 years later. The company was founded in 1988 as a spin-off from the Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, which is Chalk River. Chalk River is an absurd disease factory where they develop tech. They're kind of like Argonne National Laboratory or Idaho National Laboratory. They're part of the Manhattan Project, right? They're actually now ran by Americans, even though they call it the Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. And they first developed personal radiation detection devices carried by astronauts. That's one pathetic start in it, isn't it? My goodness. They probably brag about that to people who don't know any better. The company specializes in equipment for defense, homeland security, military-industrial complex. Their primary objective: develop products to detect radiation and explosives so that terrorists don't get you at Tim Hortons or Starbucks. These are, like, whenever you, like, when you see that kind of contempt from me, it's because it's deserved. These are degenerate inbreeds. That's why they work in these jobs in the first place. They're the inbreeds of the industry. That's who gets these types of jobs, the entitled lot, right? My parents were scumbags in the nuclear industry, and their parents were scumbags, and great-great-grandpa was a scumbag in the nuclear industry, and I'm going to be better than all of them. I'm going to be the greatest scumbag in the nuclear industry's ever seen. That's their little hamster on the wheel in their head. That's how that actually works. That's how that actually works. Oh my goodness. Hello everybody. And then got apology for Vast Stinker. I forgot to mention that by blocking that other channel over several days, all your comments will disappear. And so if I had my time back, I wouldn't have removed it. I would have made you stop using one or the other. Because I don't like that, right? It's extreme for me to do something like that. And I asked you over and over and over to make a decision. You didn't do it, so I had to block one. And I hate it when stuff like that happens, and it happened. And there's nothing I can do about it. And it bothers me when it happens. In fact, stuff like that haunts me when it happens. And that's not fair. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not the bad person for trying to keep everything civil. Earth can regulate its own temperature over millenniums. So what? After we're all gone, the Earth will regulate the temperature back to normal. Why put out the study in the first place? Guinea Pig Nation, the non-regulatory commission, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, seeks greatly reduced safety regulations for advanced nuclear plants. They want to be able to build a plant that's going to change the regulations with no referendum. These are non-regulatory agencies. They don't regulate the industry. And they're going to change the regulations. This is coming via a Union of Unconcerned Scientists, which was started up by MIT. And there's a lot of these scumbags in the Union of Unconcerned Scientists, very influential. And there's so many people, you can't keep up with all the people at the Union of Unconcerned Scientists. And they're put on a pedestal because they're part of MIT originally, see? Which is a terrible organization. It's a hideous... And look how many people that they actually got. Stunning, really, isn't it? It's an overwhelming amount of evil. It's an absurd... The Union of Unconcerned Scientists... I absolutely, unequivocally despise them. I've covered them so many times. They're slimy worms, especially Edwin Lyman, for instance. Just about everybody involved in it are turds. They're just 100%. Now, Edwin Lyman, who we covered many times, he wrote a book about Fukushima. And he claims, even today, that Chernobyl is worse than Fukushima. So, slimebag, calling him a slimebag is being polite, right? Calling him a slimebag is being nice. He's infinitely, what he's done, the lies he's told, the propaganda that he's spread and that we've covered, which is just a fraction of the stuff where he's quoted all around the world. All kinds of media will turn to him. That's the idea of this organization, to spread deceit and dishonesty, like Arnie Gunnarsson and Helen Caldicott and Christopher Busby and the World Nuclear Association, World Engineering International, the rest of them. Yes, the belly of the beast. It's a short show tonight, despite all the work I've done. I just don't have what it takes to go through all the details tonight. Call all the lies. We went through the majority of it, didn't we? I was talking to Stephen Young today, and his voice is almost sounding, I won't say normal, but close to normal again. Physically, he's got forever to go. But at least, like, that's so important that you get your mental capacity back. And for months and months and months, you can tell that he's, you know, because I've been talking to Stephen for years on the phone, and you can tell that that's a big improvement, whether he realizes it or not. Because I've been there, right? I've been that injured where it took a long time to get the noggin to work properly. So it's going to dip down to minus 15 tonight. Woo! This is going to be cold. We had a bit of snow yesterday. I never got the tarp on because I didn't see it coming. And we're supposed to get rain on Saturday and Sunday, so that'll get rid of the snow. It's going to be windy, but I'll get the tarp on then. And that breaks my heart on the boat to do that. I'd rather be on the ocean, right? And I still got, like, we'll get like a 10-day lull around New Year's. And if everything goes right, I'm going to put the boat in the water, get the mechanic to come up and see if we can figure it out, what's going on. I got a diesel stove in that thing, so I can be out there in the winter, see? It's a pretty rough coastline to do it in, but I can pull it off at this stage. I got things figured out. I mean, we got an extinction event going on the east coast of Canada, not just the west coast. And everybody's sleepwalking into it. Thanks to Fukushima and 1,000 fuel pools worldwide hemorrhaging into the environment. And I took a fall a couple of days ago when I put the small Zodiac inside. I had to get up on the trailer. It's in the portable shed. And so you're up reaching about 10 feet in the air, and lost my footing and landed on my head and my right shoulder. And so that's still aggravating me today. That was a couple of days ago. So, and what I mean is, like, it's hard to hold a cup of tea or something with my left hand. Or it's like trying to pour something or like that. They've got any kind of weight to it. My shoulder and elbow tells me don't be doing that. So I got lucky. And lucky being I didn't have to go to the hospital. We still haven't got a report back from the medical imaging we done last month, a month ago. No one's celebrating the genocide of another race, AJ. What are you talking about? Yeah, I hurt myself for sure. Good night, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Last show of the week. Today is Wednesday, 23rd. So unless there's an earthquake or some major event on the weekend, I'll be taking the weekend off. Friday, Saturday, and then I start working again Sunday. Sunday night is the first show each week. That works out really good, really, right? Starting on Sunday and ending on Thursday. Ed Shusha, thanks a lot. Ubu Tuscan, whatever the hell they call that shit. Actually works. Hopefully I don't have to use that anymore. But it got me through yesterday and today. Oh yeah, the Native Indians Thanksgiving tradition has been, yeah, good point. Thank you. Well, most people don't even know what Thanksgiving is, right? It's a holiday for them. But there are people out there that do know the difference. And I don't celebrate it, but people do. I think, the majority of the population, it's been commercialized like any other holiday. But it is, right? It's a derogatory legacy to it. I'm glad you pointed it out. Thank you. Kevin's in New York. The Big Apple, New York, New York. I was hoping to take the bike and head in with the fresh snow, look for tracks. But I can't push my luck because of my shoulder. That pissed me off yesterday. I really wanted to take off. We had fresh snow falling. And so give it another couple of days. I don't know, we're supposed to get the forecast was saying blowing snow tomorrow afternoon. Blowing snow is, you don't want to hear words like that. It's supposed to be minus 11 tomorrow all day, minus 15 out there tonight. It's close to midnight, I think. No, it's 11:30. An hour and a half. Enjoy your half an hour off tonight. That's due to me being lazy. It doesn't happen very often. I'll read everybody's comments later tonight or tomorrow morning, whatever comes second or first. Good night, everybody. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow. We'll see everybody tomorrow night for the last show of the week. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody soon. If you made this far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Good night, everybody.